Through storms, unshaken, unbowed. Through trials and verdicts, still standing proud. A titan in the tempest, against the raging crowd. He's got a vision for the future, gonna shout it aloud. Changing the wind, it's coming fast. A new foundation built to last. Cryptocurrency's the key. Make the big switch. Power to the people. Time to teach the rich. Legal battles can't hold him. He's moving on. With plans so bold, from dusk till dawn. He's rewriting the rules. A new dawn's day. From the hands of the few to the people's way. Say goodbye to all chains, embrace the new. A financial revolution, fair and true. For the workers, the dreamers, side by side. In Trump's new era, let freedom rise.
Welcome, everyone, to the Crazy Kryptonaut channel. I am Zester, and thank you guys so much for joining me on this Hump Day, Trump Day. I hope everyone has been having an awesome week so far. Very sorry to everyone for missing on Monday. As I'm going through and saying hellos this morning, I'll probably go through a little bit of why we missed on Monday. I have been having a cascading technology failure over here. Turns out all my devices decided they were going to pick about the same time to go ahead and go belly up. So I've been having a lot of fun running around over the past 5 days, getting it all together. I hope y'all, though, have been having a very relaxing past 5 or 6 days. Mile High Trish, happy Trump Day. I hope you're doing well. Oh, happy Hump Day, Koopla. Hope you're having an awesome one. Sebastian Curtis from Mark C. to Zester. Great day of info. Happy day, everyone. Indeed, Sebastian, thank you so much for joining both of us. Good morning, AHD. Good morning, Deborah. Good morning, Doug. AHD, is Uphold okay to use for an exchange? You don't talk about it much. AHD, Uphold is not bad. Uphold is pretty darn good. It doesn't have the same problems as some of the other exchanges. I do have and maintain an Uphold account. I will say, AHD, I don't use my Uphold account as much as I use the other exchanges, but I've got no problems with Uphold. They don't have a lot of pitfalls for users. Fees are pretty reasonable. And so, no, I have no complaints about Uphold. Some do seem to be easier to use. As I've been talking about a good bit recently, Gemini is really kicking butt when it comes to crypto exchange at the moment. Gemini is kind of setting the bar for 2026 already with multiple new announcements, multiple new things that have launched. And they're making it a heck of a lot easier for just the average everyday person to be participating in crypto without feeling like they're participating in crypto, without feeling like they're having to understand all this extra technology. But so no problem with Uphold. The only one that gets me, gets all my bees in a bonnet and gets me all upset is Lobster. Lobster is the exchange where that's my one, guys. So at this point in time, of all the exchanges that folks in the community use, if I could only complain about one, I would take all of my time complaining about Lobster. Good morning, Crazy Jester. Good morning, Nature Girl. And yes, we have got Mr. Tino today. Mr. Tino is in his position out here making certain that nobody sneaks into the house while I'm on the stream. He is. All right, Sebastian Curtis. Are there any limitations or specific requirements for exchanging digital assets? Is there a cap on what you can exchange? What's the best way without any restrictions? All right. That's a good question, Sebastian. And so different exchanges are going to have different restrictions. Now, Sebastian, the blockchain itself doesn't have a restriction. And so in a decentralized exchange, trade away. Do whatever you want, exchange as much as you possibly can, or whatever you feel like you want to. On a centralized exchange, these limitations are not placed on the amount you can trade. They're placed on the amount of money you can move from crypto to fiat or from fiat to crypto. These limitations are based off of you as an individual on many exchanges. So I may have a different amount than you do on Coinbase. I may be able to withdraw more than you can or deposit more than you can in 1 month. That is because I've been with the exchange for a long time, I gave them more information or whatever that may be. But it is an important thing to remember. And the very important reason to remembering this one is what happens when you do suddenly need to be moving 50 grand, 100 grand in and out of crypto on a daily basis. Now those limitations are going to matter. I mean, for me personally right now, the limitations are meaningless. I don't have enough money to ever touch one of the limits. But this is an important question for when you are starting to move large amounts of money. And so, I've thought about this on myself. Say XRP goes nuts. XRP at $100 a pop. I want to sell some. Now that part of that conversation is important because now I might be actually pushing on some of those daily limits. But otherwise, Sebastian, it's not something to really worry about. We're talking about daily limits in the tens of thousands of dollars. And the only place that they're getting you is from moving it from fiat to crypto. And so, if this situation were to occur, Sebastian, we're war planning out a future that we hope will happen where our crypto will be worth one absolute buttload. In that example, what you would do, Sebastian, if you are limited on being able to withdraw, but you want to lock in essentially the amount of money you have, you would swap to a stable coin, or you would swap to, say, Pax Gold, a USDC, and you would withdraw the 50 grand you could that day, but then you would be able to essentially withdraw the remaining amount of dollars, 50 grand at a time, until you had it all out of it. But so you can still exchange to other cryptos. The only limitation is fiat to crypto, crypto to fiat. Sorry, definitely I over answered on that one, Sebastian, but I hope that helped. Sound is a bit funny. Oh, that's no good. A bit tiny sounding. Okay. Let's see if that helps. I just increased the gain on my microphone. My apologies. Oh, well, let me check to make certain that Mike is doing it well. Everybody hearing me on the microphone? Just fine. Just fine. Then I'll go through and read my disclaimer real quick before I continue. Everybody hearing me? Everybody hear me? Do I need to increase the gain or lower the gain? All right. What about now? How are we coming in? Sounds like I'm in a cave. Well, that's the craziest thing because no, nothing has changed on that side, and I'm not in any more of a cave than I typically am. All right, I just increased gain again, and so all right. Let's hope that everything is looking pretty good at this point. And so yes, before I jump further, please do remember the content in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes, not intended to provide financial advice. Consult with a financial professional before making investment decisions. Thank you for making certain I get that one. And all right. Looks like we're good to go now with the sound. I wonder what caused that one today. Although I would say the cats do seem to have quite a thing for knocking this microphone and my camera onto the ground essentially every night when they play. And so I've always wondered if there was going to be one day where it just didn't work. I think that's the oddest thing. That's the oddest thing. All right. Topaz 1108. Please explain the function of the blockchain for my husband. Thank you. Oh, Topaz. Well, welcome, and welcome, Topaz's hubby. And so, when it comes down to it, this is an important term, and it confuses folks very often because we hear about the word crypto and then we hear about the word blockchain. And I think the best way to start the process of understanding it is understanding that blockchain is the technology that is underlying crypto. That's like, in the same way that the internal combustion engine is an underlying technology of an automobile. Ford didn't invent the engine. Ford is not the internal combustion engine, but without one, Ford cars would have a hard time moving. And so that's what the blockchain is. It's the internal combustion engine. It's what's making this thing run. Crypto is an application of this technology. And so, all right, made that little clarification. What is this technology? This blockchain technology is a decentralized ledger. Imagine it in the same way as you would your own accounting. It's essentially saying, hey, Topaz has this much Bitcoin, Zester has this much Bitcoin, using Bitcoin as an example here. It could be any crypto. But what it's doing is essentially it's maintaining all of these ledgers, all of these verifications of proof of funds, and it's maintaining it all over the planet. And in that way, it is allowing for us to essentially have the same degree of certainty that a centralized bank would provide with, hey, this is how much money Topaz has, this is how much money Zester has. We're able to operate that without a centralized authority. And so what the blockchain is in and of itself is the underlying technology for crypto. As we move into the future, you're going to see this underlying technology of blockchain be used for all kinds of things. It's essentially a more superior, a superior means of proving ownership, of actually tracking, verifying, and maintaining ownership of anything, whether that is money or whether that is, very soon, it'll be your personal information. It'll be your ability to check your voting records and things like that will be being maintained by a blockchain. And so I know that always gets confusing because it gets very technical. And it's extremely hard to take the idea, the technology of a blockchain and what it means and place it into a context of something that we're used to. It's very, very hard to do. And so typically the easiest way is to oversimplify. And so very often when people are trying to explain what a blockchain is doing, they will go towards this idea of an accounting ledger, because that is kind of the simplest thing that everyone has interacted with on a regular basis. Another way of looking at it is, what is the blockchain doing in a very, very simple way? It is to take this example and boil it all the way down to, say, 10 people, a group of 10 friends. And so if that group of 10 friends were all maintaining a ledger of essentially how much money or how much of anything that the other 9 friends all owned, well, each one would be independently maintaining a ledger, a spreadsheet. And so what the blockchain is doing is it's that on crazy steroids. And so if in this example of those 10 friends, if my numbers didn't match up with your numbers, and then it didn't match up with any of the other person's numbers, and so I'm 1 out of 10 and my numbers say something different, then what you would do is you would say, my numbers are wrong. We're going to go ahead and do the math and assume that the 9 out of 10 who all verified that this was the correct ledger, that it is the correct ledger. I know that may not have made it much simpler, but that's one of the easy ways to look at it, is to just boil it down. We're operating this on a global scale. And so I can be running a ledger. You can be running a ledger. There's millions of computers running these ledgers, and what they're all doing is essentially they're all independently verifying the ledger. How much of this is here, whether that's Bitcoin or Ethereum or any other cryptocurrency. I hope that one helped. I know the more and more, every time I get asked a question like explaining how something of that nature works, I look for another way of trying to simplify it. Because from a technology standpoint, what would you call a blockchain? It is a decentralized cryptographic ledger. That definition helps no one. And I hate that that's how it works, but that's how it works. When you look up the definition very often in technology spaces, when you look up the definition, all you're doing is going, okay, now I need to look up the definition of the definition. And then you're looking up the definition of the definition's definition. But in a simplified fashion, boil it down to a human level. It is just all of you maintaining a ledger of where all the money is. Now, after Gemini allows me to purchase packs G, do you suggest leaving on Gemini and moving it to my ledger? Well, now, and so whenever we're going and we're making those purchases on a centralized exchange, you absolutely need to have the plan for how we're getting off the centralized exchange. But as we've talked about before, keep that in mind with the amount of money. You know, it really does come down to it. Don't go buy a $70 hardware wallet when you've only got $100 of crypto. Maybe you'd be better off getting $70 more of crypto, waiting a little while and moving then towards getting that hardware wallet. But that is a very, very personal one. Ultimately, you are going to be at the final stage as secure as you can be once it's on your hardware wallet. You're always going to have that worry, well, what if somebody hacks my account? What if somebody gains access to my cell phone? What if I leave my cell phone somewhere? And now my cell phone has access to it. It's always going to be a little bit more of a worry, but I don't think that everyone has to be panicking. When it comes down to it, the more important things are understanding how it works and understanding that that's your wallet versus your bank, your Fort Knox. Make that distinction. If it's walking around town money, don't worry about it being on an exchange. If it's this is my retirement money, this is long-term money, make certain that you've made that move over to a hardware wallet, and a ledger would definitely be my recommendation. But so yes, in that simplified, though, yes, I would be trying to move it over to a ledger, but I would not be panicking. I wouldn't be rushed in this endeavor. I'd be like, hey, I'm going to get it over to a hardware wallet. It's on the agenda. All right. And that's a very important one, though, is to make certain, guys, with your exchange accounts, you need to be very, very, very up to date on the security. Utilize two-factor authentication. And when you do that, make certain that you set it up properly. Utilize all the security features that these exchanges will allow you to utilize. If they're going to give you the option to not allow a transaction to leave your account without you having responded to a text message, take the deal. Essentially, when it comes to extra security on all these exchanges, that is, once again, a personal decision, how much you use. But I would highly recommend you use as much of the security as you can tolerate. And I know that has very often been one for me, where some exchanges will allow for 3 or 4 barriers of security. And it's awesome. It's also a pain when you need to do anything. And so make that decision on a personal level. And make certain when you do this, guys, this is outside of what we've just been talking about, PSA out there. Whenever you're using a two-factor authentication app, so like Google authentication, any of those type of applications that provide that constantly changing little number, you type it in, it lets you log in, that's a 2FA app. What you need to make certain when you set one of those up is that you make certain you don't lose access to it. Be very, very careful whenever you're utilizing an authentication app. It's a great service, but you also have to remember that you're going to be in just as much of a problem as the scammers are if you lose access to it. You're going to be having to hack back into your own account if you lose access. And so do be very careful with those. On that one, I do use the Google Authenticator application for those curious, or I much prefer having other two-factor authentication set up through my phone number, through my email, all at the same time. So essentially, the only way to gain access to an account is for somebody to have hacked everything at the same time. That's not going to happen. All right, Ken. Well, welcome, Ken. Ken is just getting started, and you purchased over 200 XRP. Well, welcome, Ken. Congratulations on beginning your cryptocurrency journey. How do you make it safe? And so, Ken, the answer to making it safe is on a hardware wallet. This hardware wallet is something that you purchase. Once it's stored on there, it's no longer connected to the internet. It's no longer an account that somebody could potentially gain access to, like your centralized exchange, or like a software wallet. It's no longer like that, where somebody could potentially gain full access to it because it's actually connected to the internet. That's where a cold wallet comes in, Ken. It is your Fort Knox. It is where you put crypto that you're not planning on spending on a regular basis. Your exchange account, your software wallet, that is your spending money. That's what you walk around in your wallet or in your purse. This situation, the real safe situation, it's your Fort Knox. It's on a hardware wallet. I've got a lot of videos that help with that process, Ken. And also, I've got a link that'll save you some money on a hardware wallet when you do decide to get one. When it comes down to it, Ken, whatever hardware wallet out there you like, I think is the one you should get. I prefer Ledger, but I have no complaints about the other brands. The most important thing for me is that folks understand that distinction. If it's on an exchange or it's on a software wallet, on a phone wallet or something like that, it is your walking around money. It is the same idea as you walking around a sketchy part of town with $10,000 in your pocket. That is what you're doing when you're walking around with money in a centralized exchange, or you're walking around with money in a software wallet on your phone. Fort Knox is where you would keep that 10 grand, your own personal. And so at that point also, Ken, you have to come to your own decision of where is that price point? What do you choose to walk around with? I know some guys who walk around with $500 cash in their pocket every day, never thinking about it. I know other people who will not leave a house with more than a $20 bill in their pocket. It's kind of the same thing here. We all have a different risk tolerance in regards to that. Mal, so you will still earn XRP even if you move off to a ledger. So Mal, I think right here though that we've got to make certain for a clarification. You're not earning XRP for holding XRP. XRP doesn't work that way. And so, Matt, on something like Gemini, if you're using the Gemini card and you're making purchases with it, you'll just keep getting more XRP in your Gemini account. You can then just take that XRP, move it over to your ledger, perfectly safe. So, Mal, you don't have to worry about that. When you earn XRP for using the card or referring a friend or whatever it may be, you can transfer that crypto right over to your Ledger hardware wallet. No penalties, no anything. You'll pay a very small gas fee, but we're talking less than a penny. AHD, Veritasium. I am not very knowledgeable about Veritasium AHD, and so I would have to do more research on that one. I would definitely have to do more research on that one so that I don't give you any bad advice on it. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up. That way I can, that way I don't go losing it at any point. If it is, okay, Veritasium, an Ethereum-based project over here. I'll check that one out, AHD, and see what all there is to learn about it. But yes, I'm assuming that this one right here is which one you are talking about. I will check that one out. Oh, Proud Air America. Good morning, Proud Air America. Zester from past experiences, please, if you're buying a new phone, from my experience, sign out of all the platforms that are financial before you try and sign into them again on the new phone. Just my experience. That's great advice, Proud Air American. Absolutely, folks. That is great advice. I'm going through that one right now because my phone went kaputs on me, or is going kaputs on me at this point in time. And so I am having to constantly go through and try to pull contacts, pull accounts, everything out before anything happens. That was one of my tech failures that occurred over the weekend. My phone is regularly doing some very, very crazy things, and the screen is going yellow. And so, plan ahead on these. I luckily, as soon as the problem started to happen, I managed to get everything moved over to another device. But yes, this is an important one. That's something where you can really shoot yourself in the foot and not have ever really thought about. Whenever you're setting up all of these authenticators, all of this security, make certain that you've set up a plan B for those security programs. Absolutely. I have old phones that have certain two-factor authenticators on them. If they were to break or have some kind of issue and I hadn't moved that over, I may have made the process of getting to my crypto very difficult. So that is great advice. And that's one to make certain to do before it turns into an emergency. I just got very, very lucky myself on that, just in the past couple of days. All right. Though, let's jump into the news. We've got a few interesting ones for today. Well, really what we've got is we've got a very interesting thing to look forward to starting tomorrow. And so let's talk about that. U.S. senators move to clarify the crypto landscape. It is time, folks. The Clarity Act is ready for discussion. Long-awaited bill seeks to define rules for the ever-expanding digital market. U.S. cryptocurrency markets, the frontier of innovation and confusion. Investors, startups, regulators alike struggle to navigate the landscape. Absolutely full agreement here. You never have known over the past years whether something you're doing is perfectly legal or perfectly maybe not illegal. You never have known. Now, a group of U.S. senators taking the major step. And all right, yeah. We've talked about it enough. Let's get down to the important one here. Where's it hiding in here? It is set to begin markup tomorrow, the 15th of January, 2026. And so we are set to begin having the Clarity Act in markup in the Senate tomorrow. This is going to be a very, very important one for the markets. You're going to see a lot of price movement, especially on Ethereum and Solana, based around where this bill goes. If tomorrow we hear that everything is going fast, you're going to see the market start going ahead and pricing in that rumor. The major ones that we've talked about, and I don't think it's not just Ethereum and Solana. XRP will absolutely see a price increase with the passage of the Clarity Act, but Ethereum and Solana, because of their smart contracts and their token ecosystem, they've got a lot to gain here. This one is going to be very, 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 very interesting to keep up with. Ultimately, this is going to provide, and it's not the final answer, but this is going to at least provide the general framework for how these tokens work, how these smart contracts are regulated. It also establishes what type of cryptos are to be regulated by the SEC, which types are to be regulated by the Commodity and Futures. This is an extremely important bill. Remember, this is not, we've already got Stablecoin Act, the Genius Act that passed, but this does provide more and more clarification on how these digital assets are going to operate. It provides for the coordination amongst different agencies in terms of anything criminal that has gone on. Very important for those that have been scammed or have had crypto stolen. This thing covers a whole buttload of different facets of the cryptocurrency space, and it's going to be probably the biggest factor in first quarter of 2026 and how cryptocurrency does. If this continues to struggle, or begins to struggle, I should say, we are probably going to see a very, very red market on account of it. Right now, markets and analysts predict that the Clarity Act is going to proceed quickly through the Senate, and so cryptocurrency markets are very, very, very happy. If we do see it pass, I honestly, and this is not financial advice, but I expect to see Ethereum and Solana break their all-time highs. Ethereum currently sitting at $3,369. When I say break an all-time high, that all-time high is $5,000. There's a lot of room. This is really, really big news for a lot of different cryptocurrencies. And so this is going to be exciting. Tomorrow is the beginning. And so tomorrow it starts markup in the Senate. From that point, we'll start to get a lot more information in terms of how much opposition there is. At this point, it appears to be bipartisan. The House had no problem with this bill. The House spat this bill right out, didn't have any major issues, no problem, no nothing. And so hopefully that ends up being the case for the Senate. Sebastian Curtis, can a ledger be hacked? Sebastian, a ledger cannot be hacked, but the term hacked has become very, very loose. Sebastian, if you give someone your 24 words, it's gone. Your crypto is gone. The ledger is gone. And so social engineering is the number one means of quote unquote hacks in the modern era. They're not going in with 15 screens and all these lines of code, and they're not hammering around in a sweaty basement hacking in. They're calling you on the phone and they're saying, "Hey Sebastian, I really need these 24 words for your cryptocurrency wallet because you've got a security problem going on. So if you can just read those out for me real quick, I'll help you get set and make certain you don't lose any of your crypto." That is how it works. Ultimately, Sebastian, a ledger has never been hacked. Ever. It's never happened. And that means that if you are storing your ledger properly, if you are keeping your computer safe, if you have got your 24 words securely stored and you're not giving it to anyone, as of today, it has never happened. Many people have lost their crypto from their ledgers because that example. "Hey there, Sebastian. Let me, you've got a weird thing going on with your crypto account. Real weird. Could you give me those 24 words real fast and I'll get it fixed for you?" That is how it happens. And I know that seems crazy, but that is exactly how it happens. It is always that way. Always that way. All right. Oh man, we got a few interesting ones. Mr. The Creek, I browsed through your previous videos. Why are you into XRP? And so, Mr. The Creek, when it comes to XRP, I've been a XRP holder since 2017, but I have a very, very diversified crypto outlook. I believe that XRP and some of these other crypto blockchains that are focused on these major payment rails, that they serve a very large purpose going into the future. Mr. The Creek, did you get tricked into it? No. That's not how that one worked, Mr. The Creek. I would say that some price expectations that folks have on XRP are a little exorbitant. But no, when it comes down to it, not in the slightest. Sebastian, I purchased some Shiba Inu a few years ago during all the hype. Any thoughts on it? When it comes down to meme coins, Sebastian, I have some dollars in meme coins. I keep some. I got a little Doge. I got a little Shiba. Sebastian, just keep in mind and remember, when it comes down to meme coins, they're not based off of any fundamental value. Ultimately, their value is whatever the current hype train believes it to be. But I'm not going to question whether that's not going to go up in value. For me, I'd rather put my dollars in fundamentally valuable projects that are generating, that are creating services, that are creating solutions. But it's a little fun, and I don't think it's ever going to go away. I think meme coins and community-based meme crazes are always going to be a thing. Just maybe a little bit less popular going into the future. Mobile 37. Hey, Zester, I thought you'd already covered this topic. I will go back and watch it. What is your take on Metallicus? I have not heard about Metallicus Mobile 37, so I will have to check that one out. Metallicus. I like the name. Definitely sounds exciting. Mr. The Creek. If you read the code and cryptographic code, you'll see it's sus. Well, Mr. Creek, definitely. I don't know if you have gone through and read out the XRP ledger. Not the easiest code to read. And yes, it's a consensus mechanism. It's built in very much a different way from the other decentralized blockchains. That's what allows for the extremely fast and extremely cheap verification of transactions on the XRP ledger. When it comes down to it, yes, the XRP ledger is not as advanced in many ways as the blockchain, as the Bitcoin blockchain, or especially not as advanced as the Ethereum or any EVM chain, but it serves a different purpose. And so when it comes down to it, it's a different purpose. Absolutely. All right. Let's jump to which one is the most fun? Which one's the most fun? All right. Hey, we were talking about scams. We were talking about things to be careful about. Let's go ahead and cover one on that one. Texas teen has received a 45-year sentence for attempting to perpetrate a terrifying cryptocurrency home invasion. And so a 19-year-old from Dallas has been handed a staggering 45-year prison sentence after he committed a brutal home invasion, including guns, violence, threats, etc., trying to steal digital assets. So what happened here? A quiet evening in 5300 block of Tiffin Drive in Texas. Family is sitting at home. 3 guys, led by 19-year-old Abdias Espinosa, come busting in, throwing guns, punches, and etc., trying to force the victim to hand over his cryptocurrency holdings. And so, very, very, very scary thought. This is something we've seen different articles about this. We've seen different news stories. Ultimately, it remains very much a problem today. And it's one where there's a lot of very easy things to do in order to not ever be targeted in a situation like this. Now, for the vast majority of y'all out there, y'all are not running a show or doing something like this. You're not drawing attention. You're not drawing attention to yourself or to your cryptocurrency. But this is a very important thing to remember. You do not want to ever draw attention to the fact that you hold cryptocurrency. I've kind of got a hard time about that because I come out here and publicly help talk about it and try to educate folks. But for the vast majority of everyone out there, don't talk about your cryptocurrency. It's definitely not something to be bringing up. And so this article went through a few little tips. Keep it private. Never post wallet addresses or balances on social media. This is an important one right here, guys. Remember, when you've got a wallet, you've got what's known as a public address. That public wallet address is what allows people to send you crypto, or allows you to say, that's your public wallet address for your Ledger hardware wallet. That allows you to send crypto from your Coinbase to your Ledger hardware wallet. But this is something many folks are not aware of or don't think about. When you give someone your public wallet address, you have not given them the ability to take anything from it. There's no control, but they can see everything that's inside of that wallet. And so if I have your public wallet address, I can go through and I can say, hey, this guy's got $100,000 in that wallet. I can see it. And that means you could potentially paint a target on your back for someone showing up in real life. And so that's a very important one to remember. Your public wallet address does not give anyone access to your crypto, but it does allow people to very much stalk your crypto. And so this is an important one to remember. Whenever you are putting something like that out there, you are allowing people to see what is in your wallet. When you send a transaction to someone, say, I don't know, Trish, I owe Trish a few dollars or something like that. I need to give her some money. Trish gives me her public wallet address. I sent her some crypto. Trish now has my wallet address that I sent that crypto from. And so now Trish can see how much money Zester has, where his money's at, and all of those things. Keep that in mind. It is not something that you have to be like, oh no, they've got it. I need to change to a new wallet. No, but they can see it and anyone can see it. We've looked at this before, folks, with like the like XRP scan or any of the blockchain explorers. What these allow you to do is if I have your wallet address, I can go through and I can see everything you've ever done with that wallet. And so this is an important one to remember. All right. Number 2 on essential tips. Use a hardware wallet. Devices like Ledger or Trezor keep your keys offline. We talk about that one so often. Y'all know on that. Enable two-factor authentication everywhere. Add extra layers to exchanges and apps. Absolutely. Now, here is one that we had never really talked about, but is another thing that is very, very, very useful in the case of someone breaking into your house or something of that nature. A decoy wallet. Keep small amounts in easy access wallets for emergencies. Okay, that would be where you have that $500 sitting on your cryptocurrency wallet on your phone. And then you would say, hey, no, that's all the crypto I have. Things like that. Decoy wallets, it's something to think about. But at that point, if you're probably going around putting out decoy wallets, it's probably because you've got a lot of crypto, a whole lot of crypto. Home security, cameras, alarms, verified deliveries before opening doors. In this situation, these 3 kids said that they were there to deliver food. And so the family opened the door because they believed they were getting a food delivery. And so, yes. All right. Report threats. If someone is asking you a lot of questions about your cryptocurrency, first, don't answer. Secondly, if there's someone who can actually gain access to you in real life, alert the police immediately. Ultimately, it's the same idea if somebody was, going around asking a bunch of questions about your banking information or going around and asking a bunch of information about, where your kids go to school. It's the same kind of thing. It is a threat. And it's something you should take seriously. And so this one is, I know that folks get very concerned about these. I know that it is a worry. Ultimately, remember, they're targeting people who have a buttload of money. I don't have enough money. It wouldn't be worth going to jail to rob Zester. Ultimately, you're not going to get out of here with enough crypto and enough money for it to be worth giving up the rest of your life. But there are folks out there who have that amount of crypto where folks will think that it is worth taking that kind of risk. And so the best answer is to just not mention things about it. When you're hanging out in rooms like this, you're chatting with me, make certain to use your screen name, make certain to not connect it to your actual name. And definitely, guys, don't go mentioning to anybody if you suddenly made it big on crypto. Don't go bringing that up to folks. I know it's fun. It's exciting. You want to tell people, but it's as easy as telling the wrong person in the wrong place. You don't go mentioning to your waiter that you just suddenly came into $1 million and that you have the keys to it sitting on your phone. you may be getting quite an odd dessert option when you try to leave the restaurant. Absolutely. Be careful on that one. Absolutely. The Get Say Ray. Public wall addresses can be somewhat anonymous. When you share that with someone, you're effectively told them to look on what side of town you live on. They can see your assets. Absolutely. That's a great way of looking at it. Yeah, you gave them your home address, and your financial home address. If they're a normal, sane human being, you didn't do anything wrong. If they turn out to be a nutbag, now that public wallet address is something that you will start to think more about conserving. And something that I will let everyone know. When you send a transaction from a centralized exchange to a wallet address, the receiver of that crypto gains no information. And so that is one very easy way to get around that. If you see somebody that, you're just kind of sketched out, but you need to send them some money in crypto, or you just don't want somebody to know. I mean, maybe, your cousin asks you to borrow some money and you don't really want your cousin asking you to borrow money all the time. So you don't let him know that you got $1 million sitting in the wallet. Send the transaction from a centralized exchange and bada bing, bada boom, your cousin's not going to know that you got $1 million. There's a lot of different ways. There are very, very non-criminal reasons that people would want to maintain privacy over their funds. And so for me personally, I want to maintain privacy because I believe in privacy. It's not because I have anything to hide. It's because everybody on the planet doesn't need to be able to go through and look at my crypto. That's the reason that I have the wallets that I use for the show. And those wallet addresses, you're always able to go out and find them. You can find those ones that I use for the show. And I'm not going to use the ones that I use personally on the show because for me, it's just a matter of that. It's just important to me. Even if it doesn't matter and there's nothing to hide. I don't believe anyone should know where my money goes. Yeah, that kid's right. That guy is blessed that the homeowner didn't blast him with a wireless soul puncher and turn him into Swiss cheese. Yeah, absolutely. Luckily, the rest of the family members were very, very smart. They hid, called 911, and it doesn't turn out in this situation that these criminals were all that bright. They were obviously bloodthirsty, willing to do anything, but they weren't bright enough to really understand it. All right. Yeah, epicenter. It could be someone who talks to someone else about it. Absolutely. You tell your buddy and you don't ever believe that, and he just doesn't think about it. You tell your friend, oh my God, I did amazing. It just came out of nowhere. You tell your friend that, your friend isn't thinking about it. Your friend is just excited for you. And so maybe he mentions it to his wife. And he says to his wife, did you hear? Zester just made $50,000. It's amazing. I feel super happy for him. And then his wife mentions it to her gym trainer. And then before you know it, the gym trainer is showing up. Exactly. You never know. You're just better off keeping those things private. When it comes down to it, cryptocurrency is a private endeavor for each person. Yeah, exchanges are excellent offerings. Use on the exchange, peer-to-peer, buying local stuff. Absolutely. Coinbase even has it set up to where if another person is a Coinbase user, you can just send them crypto on Coinbase for free, automatic. Like in the same way that Cash App or something like that would work. But Coinbase has that set up for other Coinbase users. So I've used that before. I needed to get my mom some money. My mom needed some money for a bill. Bam. All I had to do was go straight to her Coinbase account and bang, she suddenly had that money immediately at no cost. There are a lot of other ways to go about it. Joey Mathis, do you think it's safe to give Social Security number to Gemini to download the app? Just asking to be certain. Joey, they've got mine. I guess if that puts it into perspective, they've got mine. But when it comes down to all of this, when you're putting out that type of information, just be very certain that you're on the right service. Make certain that you click through the right links, that you're in the right place. Ultimately, we can't exist in the modern world without giving up our personal information. We can't. That's going to change very, very soon because I do believe that blockchain identification is going to massively, massively help out with keeping our information private in the future. But as of right now, it's really the only way. Joey, I don't love it, but I do it. And so, yes, I do believe that it is as safe as it is to give your social security to any other company. Ultimately, Joey, that doesn't mean that Gemini is not going to have a problem someday. I know that for 99% of us Americans, our social security number is already gone. My social security is already on the dark web. I know it is. I've seen it. And so when it comes down to it, all of that information has pretty much already been stolen from us. And I guess that does make me even less likely to keep an eye on it. But Joey, absolutely, I gave it to him. And so for me personally, I would say that I personally did it. I would absolutely say to you, though, make that decision on a personal level. Ultimately, we live in a world where pretty much all of our data is out there. And that's not, I'm not saying that's a good thing. And that doesn't mean we get to be lazy about keeping safe with what we currently do still have hidden from the public eye. But yeah, that one gets tough. Sorry, Joey. I went off on a bit of a tangent on that one because I always have that personal conversation with myself as well. Ultimately, when I go to sign up for a service, every time I'm reticent to give them information about me. But then I think about it and I'm like, what am I trying to hide? Like, well, what am I trying to protect? I guess I should say. In this modern world, it's already gone. I mean, Equifax, Experian, the credit score company, lost over 160 million American social security numbers. That's where mine got lost. And so mine got lost by the company in charge of maintaining and essentially being the referee, the umpire for our social credit scores. Essentially, is the person who lost my social security number. And so it's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Mine literally got lost from the guy who's supposed to protect it. That's like, when you hire a bodyguard and he's the one who ends up shanking you, like, it's crazy. That gets Ray. Ira is having 2 girls and a son. Hope they're kind, informed, and smart like you are when they hit your age, sharing this valuable knowledge. So thank you so very much. Thank you. And absolutely, I hope that they stay up to date with all the craziness going on in the world, and they are ready for the new financial system that's coming. Absolutely. 55D and on, my info too on the dark web. It was the business that sold us out and gave all this away for chump change. The businesses we think have our best in mind do not. Absolutely. Yeah, this gets right. Our health insurance carrier lost our social. So my 4-year-old has credit monitoring. Yeah, it's the craziest thing. I have credit monitoring also. Maybe I should do a show on credit monitoring at some point for everyone in the community. It's insane that we have to pay. We have to pay for a service in order to keep us safe because other services that we have paid for or received have lost our personal data and information, resulting in us needing to hire another service in order to protect us from the other services. Yeah, it's insanity. All right. Savvy. Hey, Zester, how do you shop in person with crypto? Like groceries, etc. All right. Let's talk about that one and let's just use an example. This is going to change. You're going to start seeing more and more stablecoin offerings, things like that. But let's just use this as the example. You can shop at Walmart with Bitcoin. And so Walmart just started accepting Bitcoin through different applications. You would essentially use your phone, Savvy. And so you would have your phone hooked up. And so you'd have a wallet. You would go through, you would scan, you would connect with the app, and bam, you would be able to pay. And so Walmart has already started or put out that Walmart accepts. No, not buy Bitcoin, buy with Bitcoin. My computer's going real slow for a second. All right. And so right now, you can go through with OnePay and you can actually make a purchase with your Bitcoin via OnePay in Walmart. And so, Savvy, this is what you're going to expect. And so I was trying to pull this one up just so I can kind of give you more of an idea of what you're looking at. You're going to be very much essentially going through, you know how Apple Pay works or Google Pay, the ones where they scan your phone, essentially. It's going to work very much like that. And so, Savvy, you're going to go in with your phone. You're going to essentially go. They're going to ring you up, everything else. You're going to then have a little option pop up. Oh, OnePay. And bam, you'll open up the app on your phone. You go over, boing, and bam, the payment will have been made, and you go on with your life. But it'll be essentially the same exact idea as Apple Pay or Google Pay, where you just, bam, the phone will just bing, and boom, you'll have made that purchase. Yeah, that gets right. Kind of like these greedy commie corporations selling bullets and band-aids. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They're buying bricks for the protesters, buying pallets of bricks for the protesters, and then they're jacking up the price of 556 because they know that all the reasonable, rational people out there are going to be very, very scared by all the insane people throwing bricks and burning down cities. And so everybody else goes out and they crank up and buy one buttload of 556 and every AR-15 on the shelves. And well, yeah, they make hand over fist. No, these companies know what they're doing. They play us like a fiddle. They play us like a fiddle. There's some hard, yeah, that gets rid. Some cards like Tangum who have debit cards attached to them, so you give it to your parents or children, and use it like a debit card. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so Tangum, I know a lot of people that have enjoyed Tangum. I know some folks that have had a little bit of problems with it. And also, you can essentially do that now with something like the Gemini card. And so like the Gemini program that I use for getting crypto back on all purchases, it's set up with the exchange. And so what I can essentially do through it is I can essentially have my crypto sitting there. I can pay for anything that I want, and then I can pay the balance with crypto. And so there are a lot of different ways to be able to essentially start spending your crypto nowadays. There's a lot of different ways, but it's going to become easier and easier. And stable coins are going to be the one that a lot of companies are going to offer you incentives to pay them. They're going to want you to pay in stable coins because they're not going to have to pay the credit card processing fees, the debit card fees. They're going to have immediate access to their capital. It's a liquidity compensation. And so expect stable coins. And you're going to start seeing cards like Tangum that you can scan. You're going to start seeing phone apps like OnePay that you can scan. 2026, you're going to be able to start spending crypto in stores. You already can, but it's really going to be the year where I think you're going to see it become incentivized for you to do it. All right. Sebastian, considering the widespread adoption and acquisition of XRP by some very large investment firms, when do you expect seeing some significant movement upwards? Sebastian, I think that everything essentially just needs to continue exactly as it is. The biggest factor for XRP, the absolute biggest factor for XRP's price movement is going to remain tied to the escrow unlocks. And so every month, a buttload of XRP enters the circulating system. And that means what happens? Inflation. The value of XRP goes down because the supply went up. And so what we need to see, Sebastian, is we need to see demand exceed releasing supply. And so we need to see the amount of XRP being purchased by these institutions, being purchased by retail consumers, needs to exceed the amount of crypto that is being released on a monthly basis by escrow, by XRP, or Ripple Labs, the company. Once we have achieved that, I think that's where we're really going to start seeing some major price movement. Some factors that could cause this, the Clarity Act is very exciting. Clarity Act could absolutely start causing that to happen. But in my opinion, Sebastian, the biggest factors are that supply versus demand number in terms of the release from escrows, and the TVL, that is how much liquidity is locked onto the Ripple blockchain, the XRP ledger. And when I say that, I mean in the form of tokenized US securities, tokenized gold, tokenized debt, everything in the real world asset tokenization that Ripple says 2026 is going to be about. If those numbers skyrocket, we're going to start seeing the value of our XRP skyrocket. That's where I strongly believe it is. It is the year of use case, utility. We need to see cryptocurrency blockchains that are profitable, that are growing, that are being used, and that's when we're going to see it. And so I'm very much, very optimistic about this. And I think the Clarity Act in this first quarter is going to set the stage for 2026. My only fear around this year and how far we can progress is around the midterms. I'm afraid that the midterms are going to derail legislative efforts because essentially, if this ends up being a tight midterm race, I think it's going to derail it. If this ends up being a breeze and we see the Republican Party is most likely going to maintain control of the House and Senate, then we're probably going to see more movement on this crypto legislation. That, in my opinion, is also very bullish. So yeah, there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of factors. But Sebastian, we're on the right track right now because we're already at the point where we are meeting supply. And so demand, because of the ETFs and institutions, is now meeting supply. And that means we are a few pieces of straw away from breaking the camel's back on that. Savvy, I'm from the crowd that went, oh no, and someone pulled out a checkbook. This is going to take forever. Oh, and Savvy, I totally get that. And I at first, it might be a little clunky, but in all honesty, it's going to be faster. It's going to be just as fast as, an Apple Pay or a Google Pay. Something like that. It'll be just as fast. Proud American, I've been away. Did you see my questions? I answered a question or two from you there earlier, Proud American, but I don't know if I missed any more. All right. Yeah, Savvy, that would be great. Dismantle BlackRock State Street Vanguard and let us all have a brick. That'd be a brick I'd keep on the mantelpiece for the future. That would be a brick that I would view as a very important piece of history. Price actions will start moving when big players start using and buying XRP. We need to hit $5 to $7 resistance, and we see violent price up just as Bitcoin took off. I mean, a lot of it, in my opinion, really does come down to the continued institutional adoption. Remember, XRP is supposed to be the institution grade blockchain. It's not the average user, retail blockchain. And so, if everything is going to happen, XRP needs to be that popular amongst institutional players. Their blockchain is not set up for things like what Ethereum is capable of doing. It's just not. It's not technologically the same. Ripple has one real means forward, and that is exactly where they've been moving: institutional adoption. Institutional adoption. That's what XRP means, and that's what's happening up to this point. Yeah. Responding to Savvy and Trish, let's get say Ray. I decided I'm exiting at certain price points to trade XRP for land, gold, silver, because I want to come up and out of battle. I absolutely think that folks need to be in 2026 for those that have not started to learn about more cryptos than just one. If all you've ever researched are ISOs, and that's it, I highly advise you start looking at some of the other applications of blockchain technology. 2026 is going to be that year where we start to break up. What does XRP do? What does Bitcoin do? What does Ethereum do? What does Solana do? They are not competing with each other. Everyone thinks they are, Everyone's wrong. They're not competing. It's the same idea as you saying that Ford is competing with Starlink. Ford is not competing with Starlink. Ford is competing with Tesla. But these are entirely different industries. Entirely different industries. And that's what folks need to remember in the cryptocurrency space. Bitcoin is not competing with XRP. XRP is not competing with Ethereum. They serve different purposes. And I think that it would be very helpful for anyone who is in that concentrated, you've only really focused on one type of cryptos. Go out there and start looking at different ones. There's proof of origin blockchains. There's entirely different applications of this technology. And I highly advise that folks just look into them. You wouldn't put all of your eggs in one basket. And kind of if you are somebody who only holds XRP, you have placed all of your crypto eggs into one basket. It doesn't mean those eggs aren't going to hatch. But the Warren Buffetts of the world would say you'd probably be a little safer off by splitting that up a bit. All right. Any news on tokenizing real estate? I'm familiar with Proppy. Any others? And so mobile, we've seen a few different efforts on that side. There are a few large companies that have popped up that are specifically starting to offer tokenization services. We actually saw some African nations have started selling land, tokenized land, to foreign investors. And so there are certain African nations that are now allowing people to go online, purchase land in that country via this tokenization. But mobile, it really hasn't gotten crazy. It really hasn't gotten crazy at this point yet on the real estate side. There's a lot of companies that are doing it. There are a lot of niche applications where people have tokenized real estate and then auctioned it. Stuff like that is already happening. That's the Ripple's government friends. They have a few billion in cash, partnered with all the central banks on Earth. Yeah. They have been, but this is the year. This really is the year. We need to see XRP reach full mainstream adoption or be on that path. Sebastian Curtis, there are talks, well, maybe more like rumors about a possible XRP buyback. Do you think there's any truth to that? Sebastian, it's so. I know that folks have said that there's like a government buyback and they're going to pay crazy amounts of dollars for XRP. I don't believe that that's true. But, Sebastian, I think that there's a kernel of truth in this rumor. And that kernel of truth is understanding how tokenization works. And so, when you go onto, say, the Ethereum blockchain, and you are going to tokenize gold, what are you going to do? How do you tokenize? You're going to spend Ethereum in order to tokenize gold on the Ethereum blockchain. When you want to send that tokenized gold on the Ethereum blockchain, you're going to pay gas fees in, guess what? Ethereum. And so, with XRP, as XRP begins to tokenize gold, as XRP begins to tokenize real-world assets, as more companies begin to finalize payments and send transactions on the XRP ledger, what's going to happen? These companies, these financial institutions, these central banks, they are going to need your XRP in order to tokenize gold, in order to send transactions. And so it's not a buy. It's who is going to be buying your XRP. It's going to be the institutional players who need it. And so in that regard, Sebastian, I do believe that there are going to be companies and central banks that are trying to buy your XRP from you. But they're going to be buying it from you so that they can use it. It's a matter of its application. I don't believe we're going to see some kind of agreed upon deal where they're like, hey, Sebastian, I'll give you $1,000 for each of your XRP because we need to take all of these back out of circulation. No. What they're going to do is they're going to say, hey, Sebastian, I'll pay you $5 for them because they need them. And then if you say no, they're going to go to somebody else and say, hey, will you pay $5? And now once they run out of people that'll pay $5, they're going to go, okay, how about $5.50? Like a natural market. And naturally, the market value is going to increase as more and more companies need to buy XRP in order to tokenize things in order to operate. And so that's where I believe that kernel of truth is, Sebastian. They are going to be buying it. But why are they buying it? That is where I think it is very different. Yeah, Savvy, I remember saying most things will be tokenized. It's going to be fun to look up stuff. Just about everything's going to be tokenized, guys. They're going to tokenize everything. If you can imagine it, if you can think of it, they're going to tokenize it. The banks are going to start tokenizing. Everything is going to want to be tokenized. Because if you can tokenize something, you can place financial value upon it. You have suddenly made it a liquid asset. Even debt is going to be viewed that way. All right, though, guys. Time. I just saw that one. Mile High Tricia. I'm in an hour and 10 minutes, hour and 11 minutes. Thank you guys all so much for joining today. My apologies for not getting through more and more news and for missing out on some questions here at the end. But don't worry. I will be back on Friday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, for anyone who wants to come join for some fun, we should have Whiskey and Wisdom this evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard over on the original Mark Z channel. So come join for that if you're interested in well, maybe a little wisdom, maybe a little whiskey. All right, though, everyone. Love you guys. Thank you so much for joining. I will see you again. If not tonight, I'll see you on Friday morning. Peace.